Now that we have quite a few people in the room already, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Caroline Helson. I am the Director of Marketing and Alumni Engagement at NAF. Happy Alumni Month to everybody. So happy to have you here. I think, you know, with the pandemic and the election going on right now, there's just a lot on everybody's minds, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. And what really inspires me and gets me excited about work every day is just the direct work we get to do with students and alumni, you know, helping you all with your careers and find things that really inspire you and motivate you to succeed, whatever that looks like for you. So with all of that said, I'd love to introduce Lauren Budzich. She is a NAF alumna from Lancaster High School Academy of Finance. So shout out to anyone who's on here from Lancaster High School. I see a couple of you. Lauren graduated recently, went to Babson, and then now works at Johnson & Johnson. She'll share a little bit more about her background. Lauren is also a member of our Alumni Leadership Council. So our council is the body of alumni who you know, plan various initiatives throughout the year, but one of their signature events is Alumni Month, which is every November. We've been doing it for I think 6 years. So without further ado, I will pass it off to Lauren.
Thank you so much, Caroline, and thank you, Caroline, for letting me kick off Alumni Month. This is certainly a special month for all of us at NAF, and it's great to see some familiar faces. So thanks for everyone for joining today, and just super excited to speak to you about mentorship and also personal branding. So as Caroline mentioned, I'm Lauren Budzich, also go by LB for a lot of you that know me well. And I call this not your typical networking workshop because I do believe, you know, we are told the same cookie cutter things about how to send the email follow-up and, you know, the handshake, which are all very important, but there's so much more of really building relationships and how to be strategic in who you're connecting with and what's your purpose with connecting with those certain people. So this is my personal networking and mentorship philosophy. Relationship building is certainly not a one size fits all. So take what will work for you. Not everything works for everyone, but I really think in this day and age, especially increasing digitally, relationship building is important now more than ever. And we need to find ways to do this in our new environment. You know, the COVID environment has certainly have created challenges, but there's so much we can do. So as Caroline mentioned, I went to Lancaster High School. I was a part of the Academy of Finance. Then I went to Babson College in Boston before starting full-time with J&J. And where I am in my life and career right now, I really owe so much to NAF. And a lot of the networking that I did early on through the organization set me up with the career that I have today. So the story goes, or my NAF story is after being invited to one of the NAF's signature benefit galas, hosted once a year when I was 16. And I see Mr. Scott Dixon on the line, my Academy Director, who graciously took me to my first gala event with NAF at 16 years old, you know, showed up in a suit and some business cards that I had printed out a couple days before. And I was really privileged to, from that moment, being in a space with some Fortune 50 CEOs. And, you know, NAF is so lucky to have corporate sponsors that are real life executives and that understanding networking and relationship building. So they have taught me so much. So at that event, I was very privileged to develop a relationship with the CEO of J&J, you know, the company I'm now working for, the co-CEO of SAP, one of the top women, you know, Fortune 500 leadership that we have in this day and age. Someone like Mr. Ron Williams, a part of the NAF board, who now sits on the board of Johnson & Johnson after being the CEO of Aetna. and being able to mentor me and give me advice from a company he sits at the very top of. And then someone like John Hinshaw, also on the NAF board, he's the COO of HSBC right now. Another person that through years of just building that relationship, I now can, text him or give him a call when I have a question or want to talk through things. So I don't share these personal relationships to name drop by any means, but to instead really motivate all of you that you can have anyone be your mentor. Shoot for the moon on who you look up to and want to learn from. And if you bring that curiosity to the table, I really believe, senior leadership want to invest in young people, which is what puts you in such a great position. So because of my work with NAF early on and being involved, I got to do a series of 4 different internships with J&J across college. And during my college internships, I put some of these networking techniques into practice, what we'll talk about now. And then that's what I carried into my full-time job today. They're still relevant. So I know some of you on the call are still in college pursuing internships. I know we have some high school level and also alumni in the real career world. So I think you can take something from all of this and apply it to where you are. So without further ado, let's jump in. Here's today's agenda. We're going to talk about mentorship one-on-one, what that means, and then what I call show up, get invited later. We'll then transition to staying relevant, really being top of mind to your mentors and stakeholders. The power of knowledge is when we'll discuss how reading and just being, alive and showing up, eager to learn, can put you on a path of success. How you can add value to mentors, even if they're much senior to you, there is always something you can offer back to them. And then finally, we'll bring it home with the personal branding side. I truly believe that without a personal brand, it certainly can be more difficult to build those relationships. But if you have a personal brand, you know who you are and who you want to be, it's much easier for people to invest in you early on. So mentorship one-on-one. How do you ask someone to be a mentor? And I love some audience participation here of any thoughts on what you would do to ask someone to be your mentor. I might have to call out my fellow Lancaster High School friends if we don't get some participation here. Any thoughts on this one?
You could email them.
That's definitely a good idea. Thank you, Kate. Any other thoughts? Emailing is a great way to do it.
Now, I think this is kind of a hard question because nobody really thinks about just walking and saying, hey, do you want to mentor me? Especially if, you're a stranger to that person. But I think, if you're doing it face to face, that's probably a better option than any other because, you're giving them a chance to see you before anything else, It's more about trust than anything else. And if you don't know that person, then I think it can be a really touchy subject.
You completely hit it on the head. And that is really the exact answer. It was a little bit of a quick trick question because what I like to tell people when they ask me, a common question I get is, well, how do you ask someone to be your mentor? And to your point there, you don't ask. That's something that when high-level executives or anyone in your company, you're just asking someone, hey, can you mentor me? Hey, can you invest in me? What's in it for them to take this step? So thank you both for chiming in there, and you're both so right. And what we're going to talk about is how instead of asking, how you can organically foster and nurture that relationship through multiple touch points that will then organically grow into someone being your mentor. But before we go any further with mentorship, I'm sure you've all heard of coaches and sponsors as well. And coach, sponsor, and mentor are 3 very different things. And to further your career, all three of these are important, but I think it's important to also understand what makes them different and unique to each other, because a lot of people can start to blur what a mentor is versus a sponsor, for example. So when you think of coach, I mean, we've all had some great coaches in our life, whether you played sports or, were an athlete. Coach is more task oriented. So they're really going to sit down with you. They're going to teach you how to do something as the expert. And we all need coaches to facilitate our learning. A mentor, though, is relationship oriented. So you usually have a more senior person giving advice or providing guidance to a less experienced person. And a mentor is someone who you should be able to talk with about your goals, what your future plan is, and really be able to lean on. A sponsor. Now, this is one of the most important things that I find once you're really kind of starting out your career. Because a sponsor is similar to mentoring, and I will say they can be a sponsor and mentor, but a sponsor is someone who almost has another edge to them. And that being said, it really means that there's someone with high status that can advocate for you. While you're not in the room, they're speaking highly of you. A sponsor is really someone that puts their political capital on the table and will say, Caroline or Kate, like, they deserve this next job, or I believe that they're ready for, this promotion or can do this thing. So a sponsorship is really important too, because it might not be someone that you're having weekly or monthly phone calls with and keeping in touch, but at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, they have your best interest in mind and will speak highly of you and your capabilities. So once we get to talking to people, what does a meeting look like, or what does the connect look like? So this is the same thing, again, that I used when I was an intern and when I use now in my career. But it's the same, because you need to have multiple touch points. And the beauty of this formula is for every one meeting, you're now getting on someone's radar 3 different times. And that's through the pre-read, what you do before the meeting, the questions at the second part of what you're actually asking during the meeting, and then thirdly, that follow-up, your touch point after. And you stay more relevant with more touch points. And we'll get into more of the staying relevant aspect later, but that's what this formula is all about. So let's dive a little deeper into those 3 sections. The pre-read. The pre-read is really mapping out what your conversation is going to be about. You set up time, you put time on someone's calendar, and they're giving you their precious asset of their time. How can you best show up prepared and also own the conversation? What do you want to get out of the conversation? By coming more prepared into it, will really help. So this can be done in a multiple ways. Sometimes if it's the very first time I'm meeting someone, I might send a more formal, like three slides that show where I am in the company, where my goals are to go, and where I've been, in the past. So maybe something showing your career path if it's someone brand new. Maybe it's someone you've talked to 10 times before, and all you need to send them is an email the night before of, hey, these are the 3 top things I want to talk to you about. Or, hey, these are the 3 questions I want to ask you tomorrow. And just think about it. If you're sending them that the night before and they're now thinking of those questions you want to talk about, they're probably going to give you a more thoughtful answer because they had time to think about it. And then just from my perspective is I was told from one of my mentors, they said to me one day, Lauren, I lead meetings all day. I'm a senior executive. I go from meeting, where I'm in charge. I'm facilitating it. It is so refreshing when a young person walks in and takes initiative of the meeting, because then I just get to sit back and engage with you and not feel like I have to be leading it. So believe me when I say your mentors, your coaches, your sponsors, they'll really appreciate and respect you doing this. Now let's talk about the question phase. So I know it's been said before that there's no such thing as a bad question. I will say I beg to differ on that here. There are such things as bad questions. If you only have 30 minutes of someone's time, why would you spend time asking someone a question they could find out elsewhere? I just don't think it's a good use of the time. And I found, and even talking to and getting feedback from some leaders and my mentors, they say, you know how many people have asked me my career path? You know how many times I've had to, regurgitate my whole career? And when they say that to me, I said, yeah, I get it, because you can find out all that stuff on LinkedIn, on Google. So my advice is never ask a question you can find out elsewhere. Don't ask the basics, tell me about your career. You should look up their career the night before. You should do your homework, spend the time coming prepared with more pointed questions. So for example, instead of asking a leader or your mentor, tell me about your career path, after you do your homework, I would look at their career path and I would say, oh, this job is something I might want to have one day. And then maybe say, could you explain to me what skills or what tools you needed to develop personally before transitioning into this role, for example, in 2016? Make it pointed, make it specific. Let them, be thinking about a more specific question than rambling on about, for example, their entire career path. And that's just one example, but I will tell you as well, when you ask these more non-basic questions, is that leader or that mentor is going to be saying, Lauren came prepared. Like, she's asking me a question no one asked me before. Now I'm enjoying our two-way dialogue. I'm enjoying this conversation, and I'm not answering the same thing that I've done 1,700 other times. And what that will do for you in return is get you the invitation back. And that is key. As soon as that person says, I'd love to chat again, feel free to stay in touch, let's stay connected, that is what I call your invitation back. And when you get that invitation back, you got to run with it. You got to take it to the post office. You got to mail it in right away and really stay on top of it and own that relationship. So that ties nicely into our last section of the Connect, which is the follow-up. So, initiate, let's start with initiating those next steps. If that person said, yes, I'd like to chat again, it's on you to execute what that next touch point is. Did they say they want to connect next month? Did they say, let's do a quarterly one-on-one? If they say something like that, I always ask people, how long does it take you to send an email or Google Meet or an Outlook invitation? Probably 10, 15 seconds. So when someone gives me permission to set up a quarterly with them, which is, 4 quarters in a year, that's only 4 Outlook invitations. And I'll just sit down and send all 4 out for the year. It'll take me 2 minutes and then I'm done. And my name's on their calendar and you have a place there. I also am really a proponent of taking notes. Whenever you're talking to someone, I try to just write down as much as they can, as much as they say. And I try to also write down, how they say it, because then when I send them a follow-up email, I can pretty much copy paste and regurgitate back what they told me. And I found good feedback through that of like, okay, yes, Lauren was paying attention during my conversations, and then they feel like it's time well spent with you. So take notes, it's really important. I'll tell you, one of my mentors at J&J, he's a national business director for our pharmaceutical. And after one of my first meetings with him at the end, it was like an hour long, he goes, so did you take notes? And I go, yes, of course. He's like, oh, okay, I thought I heard your pen moving. And I was like, yeah, I promise, I always take notes. I'm a big note taker. You know what he said? He goes, I don't mentor people that don't take notes. That's how important it is. People, again, it's going back to time. People's biggest assets, their time. So if you're going to have that conversation, take proper notes, go back after, see what stood out for you, and send that follow-up email in the best light possible, and they are going to be impressed. So moving on, I've done a lot of professional development work within my company, and this is from a survey that we took of our department, and I had asked everyone, how often or if ever do you set up routines with your professional network to connect? And 41% of people said they don't schedule regular connects. And I want to bring up this stat because it goes back to really you are owning your development. It's not your boss's job to own your development, whether that be in your internship, who your boss is, or when you're in your full-time job, who your boss is. Some people say it's a 50-50 split with your manager. You should own 50% of your development. They should own the other 50%. I don't buy it. I say you own 100% of your development, and anything, your manager invests back in you, that's just some icing on the cake. So now that you understand going through what to do during a connect, those 3 touch points we talked about, you're ready to build a network. And it can really just be an exponential effect. Once you connect with one mentor, they can help connect you to your next mentor, and so on and so forth. And that's something that actually happened to me through the NAF network. One of the board members said, Lauren, you need a female mentor too. And they helped connect me to my next mentor. So you need one to build you up, but I know you all already have people in your network. So a key question that I'd encourage you to ask is just ask whoever you're talking to if they have anyone else that would be good for you to talk about X subject. Let's say you're asking them about going back to graduate school. Okay, then ask that person, do you have anyone else that you think would be good for me to talk to about their experience going back to grad school? And they'll probably say, yes, of course, I have someone in my network, and then offer to make that connect for you. So even if you only know 3 professionals in your network, if you ask all 3 of those people that same question, now you have 6 people. So you can really exponentially grow it like that. Another little tip or trick, if you call it, that I'll give you is I'm all about respecting people's time, as you might have picked up on. And one thing that I learned to do, and I got good feedback on, is sometimes if someone's willing to connect me with that other person, I'll write the email. I'll take the time to write it up. I'll send it to whoever's supposed to make the connect, and then they will just send the email on my behalf. Potentially, they can make a few tweaks on their own, but you take the time to kind of write that email out. And I've gotten that has been recepted by people in more seasoned relationships. So I wouldn't recommend doing this with a newer mentor or someone you just met. But if it's someone you've known for a while, offer it up. Say, hey, I know you're busy, and I appreciate you being willing me to connect to person X. Do you want me to write up the email and I'll just send it to you, and then you can send it on my behalf? Try that, see what they say. I think it'll be well received and appreciated. So our next section is called Show Up, Get Invited Later. And this you can do anywhere. And I have a couple stories of how I put this in action. But being in all of our position of being young professionals, whether we're out of high school, out of college, just show up wanting to learn. Have those questions in your head and in the back of your head of who's running the show. Find the leaders or find the people you want to connect with and play the young person card. Just say you're here to learn. You're just trying to understand, what the enterprise is all about, what a specific topic is all about. And I've done this more times than one. And one of my internships with J&J, I was on the global design team. And I was doing a lot of my projects in the consumer world, working on Band-Aid, Neutrogena, and there was another team that works a lot on medical devices. And I kind of wanted to get a taste of medical devices. So I asked another younger associate, hey, when's your weekly meetings, weekly team meetings? He told me when the weekly meeting was. I said, do you think they'd mind if I show up? It's like, why not? Just showed up. just like walked in the room, sat in the back, took good notes. And that senior leader after the meeting, you know, saw I was engaged. I didn't have to say much. I was just there to learn, took my good notes. And he at the end was like, oh, you know, good seeing you, Lauren. I go, oh, great. I just wanted to listen in, learn a couple things. And he ended up inviting me to then the meeting after the next week and the week after and said, hey, you can come to as many meetings as you want. So that's just an example that put yourself in the place that you want to be. Also, you know, I jokingly say, get in the elevator. You know, if you're walking by and there's someone in the elevator you want to meet, even if it's, you know, not going in the elevator to ask for a mentor, right? We said you don't ask for a mentor, but just introducing yourself, getting your personal brand out. So one day I was at J&J headquarters. I had a half an hour to go grab a coffee. So I was walking to get a coffee. And there was a very senior leader that I've always wanted to meet going in the elevator. I didn't need that coffee no longer. I just decided to kind of turn my route, get in the elevator. Again, I wasn't there to ask for anything. I wasn't even there to schedule a one-on-one meeting. I just said, hi, like, I'm Lauren, I'm an intern. I know you started your career at J&J as an intern, just wanted to say hello. And now, you know, I'm not emailing that person on a monthly basis. They're not my mentor, I wouldn't say, but there's someone that knows my name, knows my face, and know I was the girl that got into the elevator to say hi to them. So just again, put yourself in the right place at the right time. And lastly, I like to say, graduate yourself from the kids' table. I think we're kind of stuck with only talking to or networking with people our age. And I just want to, you know, motivate all of you to graduate yourself from the kids' table and be willing to go introduce yourself or talk to someone new. In my prior role, I was at a couple dinners. We had a bunch of dinners with senior leaders we would have all the time. And what I noticed is my peer group would always sit at the same table and always talk to each other about the same things. So one day, about, you know, a couple minutes before they were about to seat everyone for dinner, I just wanted to introduce myself to someone. I walked up to the vice president, said, hi, I'm Lauren, shook their hand, just a casual conversation. And then what happened is then they said, let's all sit down for dinner. That VP ended up inviting me to sit next to them for the dinner. Then I had an hour and a half extra conversation with them just because I went up to say hello. So that's what I mean by graduating yourself from the kids' table, and don't feel like you can only mix and mingle with people your age. You know, leaders and older people, you know, want a little fresh conversation too. And talking to young people that are motivated and determined in their career is something that, you know, they want to invest in and talk to. So staying relevant. Of course, when we're talking about mentorship, you know, we're talking to busy people that have a lot on their plate, a lot going on. So how do you stay relevant for your stakeholders? And one way to keep yourself organized is something I learned from a former president at my company, and she was famous for doing this stakeholder matrix. And what that pretty much was is she had all her stakeholders, as in coaches, mentors, sponsors, and she would have them all on a list. And she would make sure every quarter she at least had one touch point with them. Now, one touch point doesn't have to mean a 30-minute meeting or an hour lunch. A touch point could be happy birthday. It could be happy holidays. It could be, I've heard this about your department, or, you know, your promotion. It's just checking in at least once a quarter to stay relevant. And that's what I call, are you top of their inbox? You don't want to clutter someone's inbox with your name showing up weekly, but once a quarter, just make sure that your name is on their radar. So it doesn't have to be something big like an hour lunch. Maybe it's just asking how they are or a happy birthday. And I got a lot of questions during the beginning of COVID and kind of everything going on of like, you know, Lauren, how are you still connecting with your mentors are staying in touch. I don't want to ask anyone for their time right now. Everyone's super busy. And, that's something I really had to think about. And what I did, and what I still think you could do, is instead of asking for people's time, I just sent out an email to most of my stakeholders and just said, hope you are safe and well with your family. Thank you for your leadership during this time. The people leadership that I've witnessed in my role and my managers has been second to none. And the replies that I got from, my mentors was just like, thank you, Lauren, for checking in. That makes me feel so good that you're surrounded by good leaders in our organization. And I appreciate you checking in. Short and sweet, it doesn't have to be something long or requesting an hour plus of someone's time. And work harder, not smarter. That really ties into quarterly one-pagers. So something my old team did is we always had to update this one-pager about what we were doing, what our accomplishments were, and they were hung up like in our office space. And I said, I'm like, you know what? I worked kind of hard on this one-pager. It captures everything I did. This would be a good thing to send out to my mentors or my stakeholders, because don't you guys get all the time, after you talk to someone, they say, keep in touch. And when someone tells me to keep in touch, maybe they don't always mean it literally, but I take it literally every single time, and I'm going to find a way to keep in touch. So I found by this quarterly one-pager that I already had to do for my job, I just tweaked it a little bit, changed a few different things, and I sent it out to so many of my stakeholders, at the end of Q4, hey, here's what I did and happy holidays. And again, the feedback and the replies were just, hey, Lauren, looks like you're up to great things. Let's chat more soon. So just a couple examples of things I think you can do to work harder, not smarter, use your time efficiently as well, but stay on top of those people's inboxes. So the power of knowledge, we're getting down to just a few more tips and tricks here, but read. I can't say it enough. The more you know, the more you have to talk about. So within bigger organizations, there's always so much going on. Sometimes you can get siloed in your little department and your little team. You gotta be able to kind of come up for some fresh air and start looking at your enterprise or your company from a bigger perspective. Because when you can start understanding the dynamics of your company, what's going on, what leadership decisions are being made, what leaders are getting moved in different places, then you have more to talk about because you're more in tune to the pulse of your organization. So, I always say you have to know the players to play the game. So really understand everyone, who's in charge of what those relationships up here look like. And then I find that you can just have more dynamic conversations. And then something else that I like to say, it's the last bullet here, but corporate America has gatekeepers too. And who those usually are the administration assistants or the secretaries to some of your potential mentors. And I've now developed relationships with the admin or the secretary of every mentor I have. And I am not kidding you when I say your relationship with them is just as important to your relationship with, for example, a senior leader. Because at the end of the day, when you're asking time for someone's calendar, who do you think's making the call if you get the 30-minute slot or if another business priority is getting the slot? It's going to be their secretary or their admin. So in old normal times, if I was meeting with someone, I would always show up 15 minutes early, and not just to be early to meet the person, but I'd use those 15 minutes to chat and get to know the other people on that leader's team and specialty, and especially the administrative assistants who've just become mentors of mine as well with their leaders, because they do so much and so much goes on behind the scenes So everyone is important, treat everyone to the level or the standard that you treat that most senior executive that you're speaking to. Adding value. So we talked a lot about how are you going to get a mentor, increase your connections and that cadence of connecting. But at the end of the day, how are you adding value to them? And if you heard with them, the what's in it for me, it's so important. And it takes me back to my days being like 16 years old in high school. And I would always have my dad proofread my emails before sending them off to someone. And he would always challenge me. And if I was only had an ask in the email, hey, can you talk? Hey, can you connect me to someone? My dad would say, well, what are they getting out of this? Like, what's in it for them? So not every email should be an ask. And we talked about a few examples like what I mentioned about saying happy birthday or happy holidays. These simple things that puts you on their radar doesn't have to be an ask. So I think it's important to mix that in every once in a while so that every time you show up on their inbox, they're not rolling their eyes and saying, oh, here comes Lauren again, asking me to meet or asking me to connect her to someone or whatever else. You want to really make that a mix of how much you're asking for. So people say though, well, Lauren, I get what you're saying, but I'm just entry level or I'm just an associate. How do I add value to someone higher up in the organization? And all I say is all you can do is start by asking them. Ask at the end of your email or at the end of the meeting, what can I do for you? And you'll be surprised. Some ideas that I've always gotten back, especially from senior executives, is they're so high up here, they want to be in tune with their business on the ground. And I'm in a role right now where I'm at that level and I can give them a perspective of what's going on this level since they're way up here. So find a creative way to really make it a two-way street and ask your person, what can I do for you? And I think this also ties back to seeking to understand, because the more you understand why things are how they are, the more you can seek to understand and ask good questions. So it goes all the way back to the beginning there of asking good questions and being able to ultimately add value. So this brings us to our personal branding section. And as I mentioned in the beginning, all these mentorship tips and tricks are great, but without showing up with a consistent brand and being authentic to who you are, you're not going to have mentors that last throughout your career. You might have someone for a couple months here and then, they're not mentoring you anymore. So I have found that personal branding and staying true to yourself is a way to also keep your mentors staying on board with you. So what is a personal brand? It's kind of a buzzword these days. So I like to think about it as the complete extension of who you are and what you stand for. And when we think about marketing tools, you really are your most unique asset and your most important marketing tool to take advantage of. And networking, it's directly proportional to this brand that you put out. And as I mentioned, it's all about the consistency of your brand. So my little formula here is the pre-work you do with the consistency that you do it really is your personal brand. And authenticity is key here. So I'll give you one of my examples. People always say, Lauren, you're always wearing blazers. Like me and Caroline were laughing before the call started. I love wearing red, and so the red blazers my thing. And it goes back to when I was 16, trying to get some of these big CEOs to take me serious. I tried to dress the part, and now I'm comfortable in a blazer. This feels like me. It feels like home to me, and it turned into something that is my authentic self and a part of my signature. And it really lets people know who I am before I even walk into the room. So getting comfortable in your own skin And I'm not just saying it has to be what you wear, a blazer or, the Steve Jobs black turtleneck. It doesn't just have to be that, but think about something that makes you unique. Maybe it's something you always tend to start the conversations with. Maybe it's how you do your follow-up emails. Think about it and make a signature for yourself. And then another question that I get a lot is personal branding. Like, where do I start? So I have a couple questions on the slide that you can take away to start thinking about, and it will help you start developing that foundation of your personal brand. So question 1, ask yourself, what am I passionate about? You need a key focus behind your brand that you always feel passionate about and can always come back to. Next, I want you to ask yourself, what am I good at? When laying the foundation of your personal brand, you want to be sure that you use your strengths to your advantage. This goes back to not being someone you're not. Think about what are you strong at and go in that direction, capitalize on it. And then finally, last question I want you to think of is, what makes me credible? What makes you credible? And the saying goes, brand yourself before others brand you. And I like to think about that quote because it's so true. You want to be thinking about your credibility or what you need to do to become credible. That might be something for our friends on the call earlier in their career, but start thinking about it before you're branded as something that you don't want to be branded for. And along with the personal branding questions, I always like to create a little personal mantra for yourself. So I wanted to leave you with this. This happens to be one of mine, a quote that I like, get up, dress up, and show up. It's something that goes all the way back to my competitive dance days. And now it's relevant to my professional life and my career, getting up, dressing up, and showing up. And I think about that every day. And is my brand connecting to that? Am I being those things every day? So I'll leave you with those 3 words, and just want to thank you all for being here. Would love to keep in touch. And from here, I'd love to know how I could help you. So please reach out, stay connected, and any questions or further conversations we want to have or experiences you all have, please feel free to come off mute. I think we still have a few minutes.
Yes, we do still have a few minutes. And also, as the group is thinking about any questions you might have, also feel welcome to type in the chat what industries you're interested in. I think that's information you can share too if you don't have a question just yet, but any questions?
Perfect. And one more thing, before we start the questions, I also want to encourage everyone to, if you see someone on the call, that you haven't met before, or you're just looking to build your network, we're all a NAF family here. So feel free to message someone, one of your peers on the call to stay connected with. Who knows where a relationship might go. So that's something I would do. I know people would probably say I'm weird, but I promise these things work sometimes. So any questions?
Yeah, I actually do. I am a high school student. I go to the Lancaster High School, and obviously the jump from where I am now to where you are now that's a big gap, right? So I was just wondering, as far as networking goes, obviously my choices are pretty limited as young as I am, but I wanted to know, what would you say, besides the personal brand itself goes, what the first simplest step I could take would be?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ryan. And I think, you're in an awesome spot being in the Lancaster AOF, great leaders you have there. So what I think made a difference for me is early on, I thought about kind of where I see myself going. And then even though you might not be sure what job or sector or industry you want to be in, if you can at least have an idea or at least narrow it down to 2 or 3 that you're interested in, start building your network with those people. And if you end up shifting later on, those people will help connect you to the right people. But you need someone in your court to begin with. And really the power of what we have being in NAF, I know the advisory board, Lancaster has a strong advisory board. You have a lot of different people from different sectors and industries, and those people join and support an organization like this because they want to interact with young people. They want to support development. So I would challenge you, Ryan, as maybe, take a look at who's on your advisory board, send an email to one of them. Hi, I'm a current student. This is what I'm interested in. Even if you just say what your job title is, sounds interesting to me. Can we chat? I don't think they'll say no to 20 minutes. So start there, start with one conversation, and that can lead to another one. And then ask that person. Remember one of the questions I gave you earlier was ask, do you have anyone else that you think would be good to connect me to or that I should talk to? And it really just ends up being one after another and a chain reaction there.
Yeah, that is so helpful. Thank you so much for that.
Of course. And I will say one more thing, Ryan, the earlier you do it, the better, because no one's going to say no to you right now in high school. But when you kind of start getting older like me, it can sometimes be harder to get time on people's calendars. But when I was your age, no one said no to connecting with me. So take advantage of it. Any other questions?
Hi, Lauren, it's Carly.
Hey, Carly, I know you. Great.
Yeah. I just had a quick question for you. So I'm going into the sports and live entertainment industry, and I know a lot of my mentors or other people in my industry have been laid off or furloughed.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't sure if it's really an appropriate time to be still connecting with my mentors from companies that I may have worked for before, since they may no longer have a job with that company.
Right. Well, step one, Carly, is I think you're showing the emotional intelligence to know that you might not want to be emailing them, hey, how's work right now? So certainly we're in this unique and have some devastating things coming out because of the pandemic. But I think what would really be appreciated by them is to not stop your relationship because they were laid off or are no longer working in that industry. I think it's really important to, no matter where you go or how many times you change your career path, you still keep those relationships alive. Because it's said all the time, you never know where you're gonna end up. You never know who you're gonna need to lean on or call on. So again, it's not gonna be appropriate to reach out to ask them to have a call to talk about X, Y, and Z about their job. But I don't think there's anything wrong, and I would actually encourage you to just stay connected with them with maybe a very soft email of just like, hi, how are you? And maybe talk more about yourself. This is what I've been up to. Just wanted to say hello. Share something from your end, then they might feel comfortable. And based on how they react to your initial email or however else you're reaching out, I think you can go off how they're reacting to it. But for them to see a young, motivated girl like you, Carly, show up in their inbox, I know that would probably bring a smile to a lot of their faces. So I'd encourage you to do something like that.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions or comments, feedback for me on any of these tips and tricks you are looking to try out or have some feedback on? And I love everyone some people putting what they're doing in the chat box. That's awesome. I'd encourage more people to join in on there, and that's another great way to connect. I mean, hey, take a screenshot of everyone on this call, add them to LinkedIn tonight. I hope you all connect with me. Well, thanks so much. And Caroline, before I pass it to you, and I know you're going to touch on this too, but thank you all for joining our first alumni event. You are very lucky, and I'm certainly going to be joining some of these other ones because we all have the great opportunity to be a part of great other topics that my fellow Alumni Leadership Council members are hosting. So next Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern will be the next session, and I encourage you guys to join. You know, there's always something to learn from one of these or someone to meet. But thank you again for the time, and thank you, NAF and Caroline, for the opportunity to speak to all of you today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lauren. Definitely lots of props in the chat for you. We're really looking forward to these events, and we do have our digital marketing manager here as well, Stephanie. She dropped her email in the chat, but Instagram is her jam. And we really do read every single direct message that comes our way. So if you have ideas for more events or any questions or anything, you can contact us there or via email. So thank you, everybody. We will share this recording with you for those that attended, and look out for more information. I hope you all have a great night.